as we continue to build an understanding of the context in which Jesus gives the Sermon on the Mount, we're going to hearken back to something I introduced to all of us, if you were here, during our sermon series through the book of Genesis. If you've not been at YC for a while, you may have missed this. I want to encourage you. You can go back and tap into it. It's on previous messages. You can find it in our church app. But we spent 13 months in the book of Genesis. Tons of fun, and really dove deep into the most ancient of all scriptures, the first book of the Bible, the book of beginnings. So in that, we talked a lot about something that we tried to really inculcate into our thinking, and that is, how do we even study the Bible? How do we read it for all it's worth? How do we get the true meaning out of what was written when it was written 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, when it records something maybe even later? How do we understand the scriptures? We gave 5 rules to the road. These will be our friend as we now approach the teachings of Jesus in the Gospels. 5 rules of the road, just real quick. The Bible was written for me, not to me. Remember that one? The Bible's written for me, it's for me, but it wasn't written to me, it was written to somebody else. When Jesus is on the hill in Galilee, he's not teaching to you. The teaching is for you, but he wasn't teaching to you. So we got to figure out, who is he teaching to? True of all the scriptures, you got to ask that question. You got to know the Bible, when it was originally given, wasn't given to me. It is still for me, but it was given to somebody else. Each book, each sermon was given to someone else. The second thing we need to know about the rules of the road is the Bible is a library of different literary genres. There's all kinds of literature within the Bible. There is narrative, which makes up the bulk of it, which is a story. It's written in story form. And so we have to understand the story. We got to understand the protagonist, the antagonist. We got to understand the plot and the theme. All those things are critical. That was very, very applicable to Genesis. There's also poetry. Poetry has all kinds of pictures and images and rhyming, very tied into the culture of the time. So very critical to understand poetic literature. Oftentimes isn't trying to give a literal truth, it's trying to tap into a pictorial imagery of some maybe literal truth. And then you've got discourse. Discourse is an address. It's a sermon. It's preaching. It's declaring. It's the prophets giving a speech. Discourse. It's what I'm doing. It's what I do each week. What each one of our teaching team does whenever they deliver a message. It's discourse. So we're going to take a deep dive into that on specifically, how did Jesus do discourse? We'll look at that in more depth tomorrow. The third one is the Bible must be read in context. Remember that? That's the ancient, that's the biblical, that's the situational. 3 things, right? Like real estate, location, context. The ancient context. When we read about Jesus' kingdom that we looked at yesterday, we have to understand that the ancient context of kingdom was as old as time itself, that the Bible was written in the context of many kingdoms. We see throughout the scriptures the Egyptian kingdom, the Babylonian kingdom, a major nemesis to God's purposes, the Syrian kingdom, all these kingdoms. It's what everyone knew, and they all had a king. We see the biblical narrative as we get to 1 Samuel. We see all of a sudden the people of Israel, what do? They want a king. Why? Because all the other people have kings. We don't have one. And God relented. And even though God was their king, they wanted an earthly king. So God gave them Saul, right? It was the context. It's the ancient context They lived it. We don't live it. We need to understand there's a break in our comprehension because it's so outside of what we comprehend. But it's the biblical context. And it's the ancient context. Also concerning the biblical context, we need to understand that Jesus was the promised king. All the prophets of the Old Testament, what do? They're pointing to a future king, a future rescue, a future redemption for the people that will come through the Messiah, the anointed one who will be King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's the biblical context. The situational context was the Roman kingdom. Rome was this dominating force that they were oppressed by. They were oppressed by a pagan king that believed in a pantheon of gods in which he was the highest. Caesar hailed himself as the king. So that's the situational context. Then we've got the fourth rule of the road. The Bible must be read with an understanding of language, because repeated words create dominant themes. This echoes back very much into Genesis. All the things that rise out of Genesis are themes that the Bible continues to repeat. Jesus will tap into these themes, and Jesus will give some of his own. So we're going to pay attention to salient words, repeated words, because they point us to the theme of Jesus' message. They point us to understanding how not just to know how he taught, but accurately interpret what he said so we can do what he did. The last and final one, the fifth one, is, yep, you remember it. Thanks to the good folks at the Bible Project. The Bible is a unified story that leads to Jesus. You see, everything in the Old Testament scriptures come along the way to reveal the Messiah, the King. The point in all the scriptures is that you and I would bring our hearts to what God has revealed so that we might make Jesus King of our hearts. Lord, help us as we understand the context better to accurately interpret the message so we can bring the application and live in submission to you, the King of our hearts. Today, I encourage you, what part of your kingdom can you relinquish afresh, submit, bring under his say, and make Jesus King of your heart? I'll see you tomorrow.